Welcome to West Wing Week.
Welcome to the West Wing Week, your guide to everything that's happening at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and on the opposite side of the planet. This week, the president visited Burma for the second time in his presidency, attended the G20 Summit in Australia, worked to expand access to broadband and 21st century technology in our schools, and addressed the nation about the steps he's taking to fix our broken immigration system. It's November 14th to November 20th, or Mingalarbar. On Friday, the president landed in Rangoon, Burma, and visited the site where General Aung San, a leader of the Burmese independence movement, was killed in 1947. 67 years later, Burma has made important progress in becoming a free and open democracy, in large part because of the general's daughter, Aung San Suu Kyi, who has dedicated her life to bringing democracy to Burma. The two leaders held a joint news conference where they urged the government and people of Burma to push for more democratic reforms and hold free and fair elections.
If we want democracy, we have to be prepared to live by the principles of democracy. We have to dare to live according to the principles of democracy. I think we'll get there, but it'll take us some time. But we will remain fully committed to the principle of nonviolence.
Then the president stopped by the U.S. Embassy to thank staff and their families for their service.
Hey, there's Bernie.
Before departing Burma, the president participated in a town hall with students who were part of the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative, a program the president himself established in order to engage the next generation of leaders in this dynamic region of the world.
Nom mite dine, tet nine piaya. That means dive until you reach the sand, climb until you reach the top, keep persevering.
Saturday, the president was in Brisbane, Australia for the last leg of this epic 8-day foreign trip. First on the day's agenda was a speech to students at the University of Queensland, where he highlighted the unshakable alliance between the United States and Australia and outlined his vision for advancing democracy and cooperation in the Asia-Pacific. Next, it was time to kick off the G20 Summit. Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott welcomed the president and other world leaders to the summit. And then the leaders participated in a series of meetings to discuss economic cooperation on issues like development, energy, and trade. On Sunday, before departing for the long trip back to D.C., the president held a news conference to reflect on the progress that was made over the 2 days of talks. Then it was time to board Air Force One and embark on the 9,469-mile journey over the Pacific Ocean with a refueling stop in Hawaii, and finally home, back in Washington, D.C. On Tuesday, the president met with his national security and public health teams to discuss the Ebola response both at home and abroad. Outside of the West Wing, administration officials demonstrated a new plug-in hybrid bucket truck and unveiled commitments by more than 70 electric utility companies to purchase more plug-in electric vehicles. Counselor to the president John Podesta donned a hard hat and took a spin in the truck's cherry picker. On Wednesday, the vice president arrived in Morocco and began his visit by meeting with King Mohammed VI. The next day, the vice president attended the Global Entrepreneurship Summit, where he met with, global entrepreneurs and delivered the keynote address.
You have a chance, like no other generation in human history, to leave a more prosperous, more open, more dynamic, and more just world than you found.
The summit also marked a momentous occasion in geopolitics, the vice president's birthday. That evening, the Vice President, Dr. Biden, departed Morocco for Ukraine. Back at the White House, the president welcomed school leaders, educators, and students to a Connect Ed event in the East Room. Connect Ed is an initiative to bring digital learning and high-speed internet to classrooms all across the country.
We've got to make sure these devices are within reach of our students, because outside of school, they're certainly understanding how to use technology. That's where they're living, and if we aren't incorporating that into how they are learning in the classroom, then we're not doing our job. You showed up. How you doing? Good to see you, man. How you doing?
On Thursday, the President and First Lady invited youth from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe to visit the Oval Office and have lunch at a local Capitol Hill restaurant.
I know it's cold up there, man. So, this is like a Florida vacation, right?
That night in prime time, the President delivered an address to the nation, where he announced steps that he would take to reform our broken immigration system.
My fellow Americans, we are and always will be a nation of immigrants. We were strangers once too. And whether our forebears were strangers who crossed the Atlantic or the Pacific or the Rio Grande, we are here only because this country welcomed them in and taught them that to be an American is about something more than what we look like or what our last names are or how we worship.
So remember, you can find out more information about any of these topics and see complete videos of these events at whitehouse.gov. And thanks again for checking out this edition of your West Wing Week.
don't have a pass.